You cannot punish someone into good behavior.
Right.
It just does not work.
Right.
But I'm telling you, in every family system, there's somebody that just wants to get a big stick,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I get that. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that's probably why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's about telling them and giving them one of the things people always tell me when they read my book or watch my podcast or whatever is, I love the fact that you lay out a plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a plan of action. So plan A, right, is for 30 days, we're going to do no drugs, no alcohol. And, you know, school, you got to go to school or go to work.
Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. Today, I'm so excited to have with me Kevin Petersen. Welcome, Kevin. Awesome.
Howdy.
I love the USA hat, by the way. Let's go. It's gonna be a tough game on Friday. It really is. I don't think it's gonna be as easy as the first one.
It's not going to be easy, but
yeah,
I feel good.
No, I feel good too. There's already talk about Christian Pulitzek's calf and whether or not he'll be ready to go. So, but I think we'll be all right. We got a lot of depth. So let me introduce Kevin. Kevin is, oh my God, awesome. He's an OG in the game. He's been doing this forever, which is fantastic. And so he is the Director of Family Services for Jaywalker Lodge. He is also a nationally recognized family therapist, author of Chronic Hope, Families and Addiction. Been doing this, right? Oh my God, forever, right? And is such a huge champion of helping families get well throughout his whole career. Obviously, currently giving a lot of his amazing value and focus and power to Jaywalker and helping them obviously set folks up for success and build recovery skills that will be sustainable for life. So welcome, Kevin. And we're going to dive into, not surprising, how obviously addiction is a family illness, right? That affects everybody. And we're going to looking at the impact, right? The impact on the family. So if you could just quickly, because we know we got a lot of, jargon and we got a lot of common knowledge here between us. Just speak quickly, like how does addiction, it's not rocket science question here, but speak to in your career, how you see addiction impact the family, not just the individual.
Yeah. So I have a great sort of thing we were taught in graduate school that sort of answers that question perfectly. If you picture a family, say 4 or 5, your family, holding hands in a circle, everybody turn going into the middle of the circle. Somebody gets a new job, somebody goes to college, somebody breaks their leg, somebody gets sick, somebody goes away for the summer, and they go in and everybody focuses on them, and then they come back out. The addict, an alcoholic, and mental health, let's throw those all together, because it turns out the issues, they come out. Even because the family has been conditioned to take care of it. And so the challenge is getting the addict and the alcoholic out of the middle of the circle and becoming part, and helping the family to understand they're the identified patient because they have but the family is the client. Because the whole family has to change and the whole family system has to change in order to help the individual. And we can lots about that, but the bottom line is, and one of my favorite phrases is, you cannot expect them to do something you're not willing to do.
So true. That's a really good analogy. And there's an activity that I've done many, many times where you put that person in the middle and then you have 9, 10 people on the outside with their hands out. Have you ever done that? And then that person falls, and then everyone kind of keeps pushing them back. But then little by little, it goes from 9 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. And then who's left, right? Who's left? There's just like 2 people there, which is basically representational of the family. And that person, i.e. the addict in that exercise, keeps falling to where the hands are, right? And when you've done that, if you ever do that activity?
Oh my God, I forgot it. But
Yeah.
yes, I've done
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. And what always
yeah,
cracks me up about it is even when you do it, of course, you're doing it usually with family members, but when you do it, the person in the middle, in the beginning, they're very like, ooh, it's kind of fun. And they're just falling and they got their eyes closed and they're just going with it. But then you start seeing right when it's about 4 or 5 family, hands, they start falling toward those hands, meaning they're gesticulating and guiding themselves. It's not just a free fall, right? And that really speaks volumes to what you just said. I love that analogy. It's so good. And how do we help that
yeah,
family realize, yeah, they can't just keep having the whole ecosystem be so fixated on that person in the middle? Yeah. What do you see as like the first step for that family, that if they have been so normalizing of, I just have to keep my loved one alive, or I just have to wear 85,000 hats, or this is my role, or how do I contrive the outcome of my son, daughter, husband, wife, whoever, their recovery? What's the first step?
well, I think it's really interesting. I'm in recovery myself, and one of the things we always talk about is, you kind of got to let the addict and alcoholic play it out to a certain degree. Although
Mm,
today things with fentanyl and oxys,
mm-hmm,
you one where they're like, well, sometimes you got to stick your hand on the stove, you know.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Thing. I got a quick kick in my table. It's
mm-hmm,
somewhat of the same. The family is what I found is a lot of families will call me and I'll lay out my plan. There's only 3 boundaries: no drugs, no alcohol. You got to go to school and work towards being self-supporting, and you have to take care of your mental health.
mm-hmm,
And then there's an accountability function, and then there's
mm-hmm,
rewards and
mm-hmm,
not ready to apply that. Then I'm like, great, here's some stuff. Read this. Let me know,
mm-hmm,
because it's going to force somebody into
mm-hmm,
this. They're not ready for that.
mm-hmm,
They read it, they'll look at it, will talk to me, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that. You know,
mm-hmm,
cool. When you're ready, when you get sick of his behavior,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I'm here. You know,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
honestly, first hurdle you have to get over families, getting them to understand. And there's also a lie that's perpetuated that people only get sober when they want to, and you have to let
mm-hmm,
them hit
mm-hmm,
that nonsense. You
mm-hmm,
know, from my personal experience and my professional experience, people get consequence enough.
mm-hmm.
And family system can be part of applying those consequences with love and compassion and empathy. I love you, and the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't help you with that. That's your mess. You created it. You fix it. I
Mm-hmm.
love you. I'll feed you, but I'm not solving your problems.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if I can get the family into a space where they're ready to accept that role instead of the fix it role,
Mm-hmm.
the first step.
What I love about what you're just saying is that there's a duality to it. And I think a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
families feel like it's an all or nothing. And so that idea of saying, I love you and I can't endorse this or I can't endorse that. Talk a little bit more about how you get someone. I hear you, they have to be ready. And it reminds me a lot of motivational interviewing. And in the Four Peaks Parents program, we do a whole discussion around pre-contemplative, contemplative, preparation, action, and maintenance. And so often my families that I work with, or the families you see, they're in a different stage of motivation than their loved one. And that's where the problem lies, right? Is they're not syncopating, right? So if someone
Yeah.
is ready, and again, they're not ready for maybe the big, change, but they are ready for something. How do you help them go from, and I'm thinking of, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Wreck-It Ralph, but there's a great character called Fix It Felix.
Yeah.
You've seen that movie?
Yeah, of course.
I
Yeah.
love that movie. I mean, I actually like the other day was like trying to get my 13-year-old and 16-year-old to watch like an animated movie with me, and they were not having it. And I was like, oh my God, like this sucks. Like I'm grieving like their childhood because I love Wreck-It Ralph type movies. But so how do you get them to begin to move and
Yeah.
break free of those old, right, fix it Felix, if you will, roles, and begin to look at something new that is going to create a lot of fight or flight, going to create a lot of anxiety because they're letting go of something that may or may not, I would say more likely not, but may or may not have been effective, and they view it effective, right, and helpful. So how do you get them to move?
So I'm a big advocate of psychoeducation up front, and trying to hit them with like, here's the intervention we're going to use, or here's the clinical thing we're going to use. If they're not ready for that, I mean, sometimes they show up and they're like, we are way past that. What do we do? I'm like, great. But when they're still kind of like, I'm not sure. I am huge on psychoeducation. I actually, like at Jaywalker, I have a entire we call it Jaywalker Lodge University that I created online. Awesome. It's nice. It's an on, and it has 6 sections: addiction, recovery, codependency, trauma, family systems, mental health. And the families have to get into that. And awesome. But the initial stage is understanding addiction. And I make them read my book, and I got to tell you, this is the one. I make them read Dopamine Nation. Because it explains addiction in terms they can understand, and so it's about like, it's identification, right? If they're like, oh yeah, right, okay, and then so now I see the problem. Okay, Kevin, what's the solution? I'm like, okay, we're going to try these boundaries for X amount of time, and if it doesn't work, then we're going to go to plan B, which is intervention and treatment, and that's really my thing. Is there's a series of videos that I believe in as well that are really great people talking about stuff and engaging in this. And Kevin McCauley's, Pleasure Unwoven is a great. It's a little old, it's a little cheesy, but you know what? It hits at home. It hits at home. And so through psychoed, they can identify. And so, it's the old, at my heart, I'm a 6th generation salesman. So at my heart is. Are you a
Zig Ziglar fan?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Love Zig.
Yeah. His stuff is great.
He's the man. And so one of the big things in sales is helping the client see the problem, or listening for their problem, not shoving a problem. It's like,
right, and pulling on the pain points, right? Financial, emotional, physiological. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I understand. Yep. And okay, and so I have a solution. And then what I will get is the resistance of, we've tried, it doesn't. I'm like, well, okay, here's my question for you. How's your way working? And I'm really blunt, Tom. I'm really, really blunt.
That's right. That's where we get along, I think.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
because people are dying, Kevin. People are dying.
It's life or death.
It's life or death.
Freaking life or death. Yeah.
You can curse, by the way. It's all good.
Okay. It's fucking life or death.
Yeah,
it really is. And people got to see it that way and understand that. And so I have no problem saying, all right, well, I mean, you called me. How's your way working? Well, it's not. Okay, how about we try something different? From someone who's been sober 35 years, worked in the industry for 20, and and has written a book and and there's still people that are like, nope, and I'm like, okay, cool, you have my number.
Well, what you said, I think, is really smart about allowing that person to get information and to also begin to feel, right, those pain points. And as you know, there's a parallel process of addiction. And so as their loved one's getting sicker, they're getting sicker too. They're normalizing more. That tolerance can only last so long, right? Until, as you know, right, someone eventually is financially, emotionally, spiritually broken. I think what's so hard for families is to let go of this thing that, again, they believe has kept their loved one alive. And that might be true. It might be true. It's hard when you're that close, right? You can't see the forest for the trees, right? Did I get the analogy right? You can't see the forest for the tree? Yeah.
Forest for the trees.
Maybe a better one is you're staring at an elephant's ass and you just see gray, right? It's like they have a hard time with that. And because it is life or death, it is so scary, and fear is just oh my God, running roughshod all over them. And so is anxiety, and they're in a cortisol bath. And it's so hard, right, to think objectively, even with a fully formed frontal lobe. And they've been in that for so long, right? So
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
that it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to, and you're trying to build a bridge out, and you are offering hope, and you do such a great job of building really honest, open, safe, intimate relationships with the families and helping them. It's very difficult, when they're operating in a war zone without realizing it, and they all have PTSD without realizing it. So this isn't
Yeah.
like a top down, sort of thought process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I absolutely 100%. And I mean, I have huge empathy for them. And a lot of that, I mean, for me, there's always two sides. There's personal, professional.
Mm-hmm.
Personal, is my family. I mean, my parents have passed, and I have a sister, only one sibling, but they were in 1990. They were clear. We love you,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't be around because we can't
Mm-hmm.
keep watching your suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And they were getting coached.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
and that therapist that they were talking to gives me another pillar of my belief system, and that is, by not doing anything, you're actually enabling their suicide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're participating in it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's and I know they think, well, I mean, I'm not buying him anything, and it's whatever, and it doesn't affect. It only affects himself, and I'm like, I know you're telling yourself that, but that's just not the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's tearing you up. You can't sleep at night,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
hovering over them. You're doing the
Mm-hmm.
watch my phone thing, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, that's no way to live. But they've done it so long that they
Right.
think that's normal.
But the piece you said about waiting for rock bottom doesn't work out that well, because we know this is a disease that functions like all disease, right? It's progressive, it's chronic, it's treatable, which is the coolest thing about it, but it's also potentially fatal.
Yeah.
How do you help families raise the bottom, as I like to call it, right? Instead of waiting
Sure.
for them to hit the bottom, how do you raise the bottom so that they can create, I call it, raising the tide. So I talk about all the time, leaders create more leaders. And I always say that, when we raise the tide, we raise all boats, even the dinghy or the yacht, right? And so if we can create a culture that's going to ask your loved one to be functional, and I like those things you said earlier. I use Freud a lot, not a lot, I shouldn't say. This is maybe the only time I use Freud, and I'm not anti-Freud at all, by the way. Definitely was trained psychodynamically and all that fun stuff way back when at NYU. But the thing I love that Freud said is, he says, someone's healthy if they can play, work, laugh, and love. And so you kind of described a very similar thing, which is, you said, if they're have a job, if they're managing their mental health, right? What was the third one? Contributing ostensibly? Sober, obviously. No, well, you said no drugs in the house. I mean, that's not sober.
No drugs, no alcohol. Yeah.
No drugs, no alcohol. Right. But I'm saying, when I start with my families, it's funny. There a lot of times they're like, oh, we're drug testing. And I'm like, and what are those tests? Positive. I'm like, okay, so why are you drug testing? It makes no sense. I always say to my family, you drug test 2 times tops if you need that evidence, if you don't already have it. I'm talking about someone, for my families, let's go with a really young adult, 18-year-old. I always say, or at 18 to 22, if they don't have a job, if they're not obviously in college and functioning and or managing their mental health, and you believe they're substance using, right, they're not functional. So how do you help families raise that bottom?
Sure. So again, I mean, so we start with the psychoed of helping them understand, sort of giving them the awareness of, oh, okay, we have a problem. And so then it's rolling them to a solution and saying, well, okay, so here's how we deal with this. Here's how we, like you said, get the high tide. What's the analogy? A high tide raises all boats, or something like that. And here's the deal. You can come back to your loved one and say, hey, we love you. And we're going to lay down some new rules and regulations, and we still love you. I mean, another big thing I believe in is you cannot punish someone into good behavior.
Right.
It just does not work.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm telling you, in every family system, there's somebody that just wants to get a big stick,
Mm-hmm.
and I get that. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that's
Mm-hmm.
probably why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it's about telling them and giving them. So what? One of the things people always tell me when they read my book or watch my podcast or whatever is, I love the fact that you lay out a plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plan of action. So plan A, right, is for 30 days, we're going to do no drugs, no alcohol. And, school, you got to go to school or go to work. And then you got to deal with your mental health, either through 12-step or therapy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, and they're all like, oh, we've tried that. I'm like, and then you didn't do it. I'm like, then what'd you do? They're like, what do you mean?
Right.
like,
Right.
like my analogy for that in the book is that's like driving down the freeway at 85 miles an hour when the sign says 55 and there's
Mm-hmm.
a cop shooting radar and you whip by and he just waves,
Mm-hmm.
So it really doesn't mean anything. I said,
Right. It's a T-Rex with no teeth. Yeah.
you
I
have
mean,
to be willing. Yeah.
well, and even I would add a lot of my families. One of the things that I do very similar, hence the reason it's called the Four Peaks Parents Program, is there's four peaks that they have to climb, all with specific objectives. The first one is the family audit, which is what the hell is going on? What's the system here driving the symptoms? Mm-hmm. The second is emotional mastery. The third is upgrading your toolkit, and the fourth is rewriting your family story. But along the way, I have them immediately set up a family meeting once a week, just once a week with their loved one. How's it going? How's it working? What do you think? What do we think? And then I teach them different things. Like, I don't know if you know, you would understand this once I explain it in 3 seconds, but this is from Wilderness Days, VOMP, and I call it VOSP, which is Voice, Ownership, Choose, Plan, which is everyone goes around and gives voice to what's going on. And I always say, let your loved one share their perspective, and if they want to blame you for why they're using or this, that's fine. You have to stand, you don't have to endorse their perspective, you don't have to agree with them, but we can still let them vent that, and then walk a mile in their shoes, take ownership for whatever you should take ownership. The majority of my families in the beginning can't even get their loved one to go to that meeting. I mean, that in of itself tells you something's broken. If you have someone that you're trying to at least broker an equanimous relationship with, and they're not even willing to come to the table, and they're threatening this or that or da-da-da, and your analogy of the police officer is so great, and they're allowing their loved one to maintain magical thinking, and their reality testing is off, because if you really were high functioning, you again would have a job, you would be doing something of meaning, of purpose, passion, right? And even if let's take I always say to the families, like, okay, let's go with the weed is medicine, or the weed helps me with my anxiety, the weed helps me with, let's listen to that. Yeah. However, what does that have to do though with no college, no job, no this, no that, isolating, you know what I mean? All these kinds of things. Yeah. So they're not mutually exclusive. Until,
I believe in the same thing. I believe in a once a week family meeting just to review everything. Yeah. And like you said, everyone gets a voice. Yeah. It's not a, you're not getting called to the principal's office. Right. This is everybody gets a voice. Yeah. Yeah. And, and if it's even if they're 6, 12, 14, 16, 20, 30, whatever, it just, everyone gets a voice, and they can say, this sucks. I don't like it. It's like, okay, I totally hear what you're saying, and I get it. Mm-hmm. And this is another thing that I teach is how to be a better listener. I steal some Gottman stuff there, but I mean, let's be honest. I think way before the concept of therapy and psychology, there was a guy's like, you just need to shut up and listen to what they say.
Oh, 100%.
100%. And so it's like, just listen to them. And they're like, well, yeah, but then when do I get to tell them they're wrong? I'm like, you don't. Right. Just listen. Right. Listening isn't agreeing. Right. It's respecting. Yes. And we have to get that element of respect, is what I think you're talking about, is everybody gets the respect, and everybody gets an opportunity to speak their piece. And but then in every family there's dynamics. There's people that pay the bills, buy the food, pay the rent, and they control that. And that's like, well, if you want to be in my house, these are my rules. It would be no different, Tom, if I came in and moved in with you and your family, and I don't want to, and you don't want me to, but
might be fun. Might be fun during the World Cup, though. I'll have.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. But you would say, "Hey, here are the rules." And we don't. And if you violate the rules, we still love you, but you got to go.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's funny. I love Gottman stuff. I do a lot of MI. Teach my families a lot of MI, motivational interviewing. So I love OARS. I love open-ended. Just so listeners know what the hell we're talking about. OARS is open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, summarizing. And I always say to my families, if you could suspend disbelief when you ask an open-ended question and extend some grace or curiosity, you're going to get so much more. And there is always something to affirm. As crazy as this sounds, if your teen comes home and says, everyone was drinking and 3 people blacked out, and I was offered 4, weed carts, and they come home and they do smell like alcohol, and they clearly were supposed to be at so-and-so's house. Well, I'm not saying that teen may or may not need some form of an intervention. We don't know, but there is still something to affirm. They left the party early. They did, in fact, call you. They fell on their sword. They didn't do, they didn't black out. They didn't do the vape thing. They didn't do the Xanax, whatever that is. Again, I'm not saying we set our bar low at normalizing high-risk behavior. I'm just saying there's always something to affirm, and families really struggle, I think, with the nuance. And then when you reflect back what they're saying, there's a way to reflect back in what's called the double-sided reflection, which is where you reflect back what they're saying, but you also reach for a little anxiety and you say, so what I hear you saying is this, this, and this. However, how does that connect with some of your bigger goals we've heard you talk about for athletics or college or life or your relationship? And let them feel a little uncomfortable, but you still front-loaded on the listening. And then when you summarize the conversation, I always say that's where we get to be quasi-manipulative, a little manipulative, where we're like, so what I heard is this, 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 and this. You think weed is, benign and not really, affecting you and not really the reason you haven't launched or had a job. But you also did hear us say that we are working with this dude named Tom Miller or Kevin or whatever that is. And we're starting to make some changes and things are going to feel different for you. Like you heard, so there's always a way for us to join on the front end, which is what you're saying. And it's so hard because, again, the family just wants to lecture. It wants to should. It wants to avoid. It wants to ignore. The system wants to go back to its own kind of entropy or homeostasis. And what you're asking and I'm asking of our families, right, is to do something different. And weird and foreign. What do you see? Because get to see the proof is in the pudding. I get to see the victories. I get to see these families. It's really cool. So part of the program is they get many sessions across 90 days with me. They get access similar in a way to what you have going on at Jaywalker, which is so awesome that you have Family University and they have so much psychoed and they're given, information so they can just, really chew on it. And I love that you're giving them basically, like you said, a path and almost a clarity, right? And now they can put that energy instead of it just spinning and losing sleep into the learnings, into the developing of themselves. So what I love is that the families don't realize they're on a clear path sometimes, and you can start hearing, seeing, right, them react, respond differently, and it's so exciting when you see them just handling things that would have been, I don't know, Mount Everest, and now it's like an anthill for them. Talk a little bit about what is the possibility and what do you get to see at Jaywalker? Because the cool thing about Jaywalker, I'll say, folks out there, check them out, absolutely, is y'all do some long-term treatment, which is fantastic, right? We all know the insurance companies created the 30-day model. And we could be all day talking about the efficacy or lack thereof of that situation there. But you guys do long-term treatment, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So you get to see some pretty cool breakthroughs, and they're not, again, necessarily linear and overnight. But speak about what is the possibility, what is the opportunity of change?
Well, I mean, so we're a 9-month, actually 12-month program, it's in 4 90-day sections, and the beauty or the benefit, right, is that everybody they start to see that the entire system that. So what they start to see is when the family starts to change and educate and do things differently and respond differently, the guy has to level up, if he wants to be part of the family. And I can tell you, as an alcoholic and a recovering alcoholic addict, there's nothing I ever wanted more than to be part of the family. That was and they're like, oh no, he says he doesn't. I'm like, yeah, he's lying. And so when I can help the family level up and hold boundaries, because at each 90-day center, we have there's like, well, okay, now you're going to transition. And of course, that's when the guys are like, I'm all better. I need to go.
Yep.
I'm coaching the families to be like, no, that's not how this works. And of course, I'm also public enemy number one. Of course. That's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
But the families start to see the change in their person, and they're like, oh, this is working, and I'm like, it is, but don't fall into the trap of thinking they're all better. If I clear you out of drugs and alcohol for a month, 2 months, 3 months, yeah, you're going to feel better and change better, but your brain is nowhere near fully functioning. So that's why we do long term, and so it's getting the family to see the milestones, see their growth, and see how they're moving, and how you're changing, and then the need for more. It's when I can get the family to see that, and that comes in the sense of, we had a phone call and he didn't swear at us or accuse us of anything. He didn't yell at us. And then, or, he called and he apologized. And I was like, well, that's nice. I mean, a lot of times those apologies come with, so, hey, here's what I need. And I'm like, no, but don't get mad at them for that.
100%.
Don't get mad. Yeah, they're 90 days sober. They're still operating on the old system, and
right.
And I get that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think too, and I won't go into too many specifics here, but I had the privilege of speaking to so many great families that you have right now in your program the other night. And I think there's a tendency a lot of times for the families to look at their loved one as the rubric to determine whether or not the system is healthy. And one of the things I talk all the time to the families is like you just said, when we level up, right, that does create a very interesting, right, moment, right, where the loved one has to either raise their game or they're going to be further left behind. And that's okay. And I do think that families unconsciously aren't aware of the fact that they're almost in conflict with their own growth because they don't want to be left behind, right? What they want to leave their loved one behind. And sort of like when you think about grieving, I can identify a lot with this with my dad. When my dad died, I can see my dad's face. Absolutely. But there is a time when you're like, oh my God, if I smile, if I'm happy, if I'm actually open to this thing called life, the sunshine, I'm almost now abandoning my father. What does that mean? Or abandoning my loved one, or abandoning right there. And so they are in conflict sometimes with their own self-care, their own development, their own growth. But when they get there, it's so amazing to realize, like, holy shit, like I'm actually better mother, father, husband, wife, whatever. It's kind of like I talk a lot about that analogy. I'm like, I don't know exactly if Metallica is entirely sober. I think they're sober right now. I think
they had I think somebody had a relapse.
They had a relapse recently. I don't know. I'm not on the Metallica
from what
recovery
I know,
watcher. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever band. It doesn't have to be Metallica. But the point is, like, any band. It's just hysterical to me that, like, that band, Motley Crue, Nirvana, whoever, like they're better sober. You know what I mean? It's like people are like, you think of like the tortured, angry artist or comedian. It's like, no, actually they're better, you know, when they're able to write.
John Mulvaney.
Yeah, exactly.
Classic.
So yes, exactly. So it's like the families, that's always exciting me when they're like, oh shit, like we have choices, we have options. Like, yeah, we don't have to scramble the jets. We could let that phone call go to voicemail. We can say, I love you. And right, I can't endorse that, you know. And it's really funny. The families, a lot of times, they start sounding almost at times like me. And I'm like, that's great and all, but I'm like, you got to internalize and generalize that. I want you to make this your own and do you, you know? So, and I agree with you that does create an anxiety for their loved one. And I agree with you 100% that the words mean nothing. If your loved ones, anyone listening, I'm going to get really close to the mic. If your loved ones have ever said like, I hope you die or you suck, or I don't want to be a part of this family or whatever, it means nothing. It means nothing, especially if they're a teenager. I have 2 teens to attest to that. So I always say to families, it's not the words, it's ostensibly the overarching music. And the overarching music is that they do want to be a part of this family. They're just in an active brain disease or active mental health, or right there is maybe issues of neurodivergence or all of the above, right? Yeah.
And why do you think they're still calling you?
Right.
To yell at you, you know, because they want to be part of the system.
Right.
But you just have to make it clear we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
If you want to be part of the system, you're welcome here. You got to be sober. You got to be working on your own stuff, and you got to be progressing towards some sort of job, education, whatever. And by the way, there's another piece to that. If you're struggling with those things, we will help you with them.
Mm-hmm.
You need a sober coach? We'll get a sober coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You need a therapist? We'll get you a therapist. You need someone to tutor you at school? No problem. You need somebody to help you with find a job? No problem. We're not kicking you out and saying good luck. We're like, no. We will offer you support. You know, and because you can't have a problem and not have a solution.
100%.
Yeah.
It cracks me up when the families start with me and they're like literally like whispering almost during our sessions, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, your loved one's in the other room. I'm like, go tell them, please, right now, get up and say, we've engaged this guy, which I always tell them to tell their loved one immediately, not be to scare them, but to help them understand transparently, we are trying to level up. We aren't perfect. This is a systems issue. We've played some role, not in your disease or your choices per se, but that we haven't always, helped. We've hindered at times. And so now we're going to be doing hopefully some cool new stuff that's going to help us, right, step on a pathway to wellness. And we're going to be able to communicate better. So it's like, I'm like, if you're keeping me a secret, like everything's a secret, you know what I mean? Like recovery is a secret, wellness is a secret. So it's kind of funny. And then the other day I had a family where I was like, is your loved one home? They're like, yeah. I was like, go get him. And you should have saw, they were like, like, what are you going to say? What is he going to do? And I was like, I'm going to just say hi. Like, I'm going to like introduce myself. And I was like, what kind of music do you like? We started chopping it up and whatever. And I asked them, I was like, give me some positive shout outs for these two over here. Give me some constructive feedback. What, if anything, do you think you need to change? And it was just a great conversation. And to this person's credit, they took some responsibility, definitely a lot of blame shifting and running interference, but it was great. So my big message always is like, please don't let fear run roughshod all over you and run interference on taking that next courageous step. And I see a lot of families, they worry. Help me out with this one, because you deal with this one for every day. How do you help families deal with the 89th step? Because I'm always like, let's focus on the next right step. And they're always like, yeah, but if we do this, does this mean they're going to treatment? And then if they go to treatment, does this mean they're not ever living home? And does this mean that structured sober living? And right? So how do you keep them kind of in this moment?
Well, I have a phrase. You'll find I have key phrases for everything.
I like the key phrases. I like them.
Yeah. So I don't deal in what if. I deal in what is. you know, and that's, and I don't even go past that because trying to convince them is buying into that system. So I'm just like, no, we're going to talk about today. Let's solve today. We're not going to talk about, we're not even going to talk about tomorrow. You know, we're going to talk about what is going on today, not, well, what if. I'm like, no, you've been living in what if land, and that's the problem. And you know, you keep thinking you're going to have to anticipate his next move, which, by the way, is massive codependence.
Oh my God.
And I get where that comes from.
Exhausting.
Oh my God. Well, and you're never going to win. You're never going to win, you know, and that's okay. But that's when we start identifying, hey, so here's the thing. And this is the part that always baffles them to start with. And I get it. Here's the thing, though. They think, how do we fix him and change him? We're going to bring him and you're going to fix him. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You can bring him, but I'm not talking. I mean, we're not talking. That's not going to be the topic of discussion. The topic of discussion is going to be, how do we address the family system and how we respond to these things? Because if we can change you guys and the way you respond, he's going to take notice.
Oh, yeah.
And be like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? Normally, this is my favorite analogy.
You're getting too excited. You're getting too excited.
Oh, yeah. I love this. I love this shit.
So do I, yeah.
So this is like the analogy I love, and I actually got this from my Al-Anon sponsor 20 years ago. She said, you know, it's like you're walking up to a soda machine. Let's like the addict walks up to a soda machine, puts his money in, presses the button, and nothing comes out. And so what do? Yell, scream, shake, threaten, and then eventually they stop. So the family has to be the soda machine to a certain degree. You know, you have to be willing to say, when they push your buttons, you don't spit out a soda. You're just going to be like, oh, okay, cool. You know, and then, you know, that's unfortunate. I'm really sorry to hear that. And we love you, but we're not going to do that. And they're going to throw a tantrum. They always throw a tantrum. I mean, they
do. Yes, they do.
Yeah. I mean,
well, because those tantrums have worked.
I was just going to say, because we've taught them to, you know, and, or it's tears and you don't love me. I can't believe you don't love me. And how could you, I mean, I'm just really, it's so hard for me. And I'm like, I tried selling that to my dad, and when he was the one that confronted me, and I'm like, you don't understand how hard it is. He's like, I paid for 6 years of private college, gave you a BMW. I don't want to hear it, and you didn't graduate. You know, I don't want to hear it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not going to work.
Yeah, you know? Good for him. So then, good for him.
I called mom. And tried to run the mom scam.
Oh, yeah.
Mommy. And she was like, so look, here's the deal. If you're willing to start seeing a therapist with your dad, we'll start talking more. And I was like, therapist? Ha! No problem. but that was all part of the plan. You know, and I started seeing this therapist in January of 1991 with my dad. And the really fascinating, and this is the big piece, right? Is that both my dad and I started confessing and putting all our stuff on the table. And it was miraculous, you know. And then 4 months later, I was still using. Okay. And so 4 months later, my parents were out of town, and the therapist said, why don't you come in anyway? I was like, okay. And he basically sat me down and said, you know, I got something I want to talk about, but if you have an issue, let's go to your issue. And I'm like, no, I'm good. He goes, you're an alcoholic and a drug addict, and you need help, and you need to go to AA. And I was just like, yep. I mean, you got me, you know, and because they were reasonable, you know, they weren't whacking me. And so that's, I mean, did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
You did. You answered my question. I love, oh my God, your taglines. I love your analogies. I'm definitely stealing the police officer with no, I always say T-Rex with no teeth. I'm gonna steal your police officer with no consequences. I love the soda thing. I have actually literally seen someone in treatment do that to a soda machine because they felt it was not fair that the things in the vending machine were not free. so, so I've literally seen that many a times, and I've had many a tantrums too.
Yeah.
Over so many things, got my, what's in a wad and
Oh
finger
yeah.
in the wound and all that. And I just so grateful that you came on. I appreciate your wisdom. I love your just like your joy and your passion for what you do. And you have such a great sense of humor, and you have such a keep it simple, stupid way. So please share so folks listening can know more about how to find out about your book. And then
Sure.
please share a snippet about Jaywalker as well, if folks want to reach out and explore further, potentially looking at Jaywalker as an opportunity for their young adult.
Absolutely. So my book is on Amazon. It's called Chronic Hope: Families in Addiction. There's another one I wrote called Chronic Hope: Parenting the Addicted Child. It's a quickie, and then this is the expanded version that I really recommend.
Awesome.
And
before I pause, I love the title though, Chronic Hope, because we don't talk enough about hope, and I think people forget that's why I asked you earlier about what's the possibility, what's the opportunity. I mean,
yeah,
we get to see, of course, so much denial, minimization, rejection, etc., of the change process, but we also get to see so much growth, so much light at the end of the tunnel. That's why I love this work, because it is the underdog story, and yet we know change is possible, recovery is possible, right? And everything changes, right? Once, in my view, once the family changes. So.
Oh yeah. Oh well, that's the key. That's the key that unlocks everything. So, and then I have a podcast that I do with a friend, and it's really just us answering questions. So
cool.
People can send anonymous questions to us, and we just chop it up, and
cool.
And it's called The Family Matters, and
cool.
it's now segue. It's sponsored by Jaywalker Lodge.
Nice. That's
and,
awesome.
And Jaywalker Lodge is probably one of the, if not the one of the premier treatment programs for men in the country. Our initial program is 90 days. Our secondary program is also 90 days. Our tertiary program is also 90 days. And then our fourth program is, same thing. And it's on Carbondale, Colorado. Mm-hmm. And we are what's called an open community model. We are not a hospital lockdown. Mm-hmm. We are not in a business park. We are not any of those things. We are our main building is right next to a sports bar that has open windows and a bar and pizza and and so we're digging in. But it's for guys 18 to 45 or 50. It doesn't matter. And we're very 12-step oriented. We have great therapy, great psychiatry. And we do a lot of outdoor stuff, of outdoor stuff. And that, but I'll tell you, and the CEO, who's an alumni and a therapist, says, our secret sauce really isn't the therapy or the psychiatry. They're not going to remember that. What they're going to remember is the connection with their peers.
Sure, the community,
yeah, and that's what's going to and so who do you think works there? The alumni, because they're like, this rocks. I like living here, and that's really. I just got to tell you, even when I was in private practice, I always tried to refer to them first because it's just long-term works, and second, and the fact that it's all guys, that's critical. And that they're willing to dig in, and then there's magic that happens when you're doing an intense Thursday morning group, where it's a accountability group and the peers are holding you accountable, and you're digging into, and then someone starts talking about their childhood abuse or whatever, and then that afternoon they're on the ski slopes or they're on the golf course or they're riding bikes, and and the guy next to him was like, "Hey man, that happened to me too," instant bond,
totally.
And so that's our secret sauce. I mean, but that doesn't happen in 30 days.
Right.
Honestly, doesn't really happen in 90 days. It happens in 6 months, 9 months, or a year.
Well, it's funny, when I was the clinical director of a wilderness therapy program, there was a competitor, I won't say who was offering a flat rate for 30 days of outdoor behavioral health. And every family would just call And they were like, well, how is so-and-so able to? And I'd be like, I'm sorry, they can't. I mean, I'm like, the first 30 days is exhausting all of the avatars and maladaptive patterns. I'm like, if you tell your young adult 30 days from today, they're being picked up, like, what incentive do I have to let go of these things? I already know I own you. I own you on that 31st day, you know? But I love working with you. Thank you so much for being an amazing guest. I hope folks check out your book and your pod. And obviously, if anyone is currently struggling with their young adult or teen, please go to the fourpeaksparents.com website. There's a free newsletter. Of course, there's previous episodes here, and you can book a free discovery call. And I will jump on that call with you, and we will talk through and decide whether or not it makes sense to work together. It is a 90-day program that I can assure you will bring about swift and systemic positive change for your culture that more often than not, right, results, as Kevin and I talked about, in challenging your young adult and teen to up level. And if nothing else, you are not going to be allowing, right, all these old unhealthy norms and dysfunctional patterns to run roughshod all over your marriage, your life, your other kiddos who are watching. Trust me, they are watching. So I hope everybody listening takes a lot of the advice from Kevin and also has an amazing week. And please put yourself out there as well in a good way and take care of yourself. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for the privilege. Thank you for
no worries. Let's go USA.
Yeah, go USA.
Take care. Bye, everybody. Bye.